What is going on YouTube and welcome back to the channel. Today we have the profile of the missing link of our team. The missing person that we haven't found, but we found him today. We're so happy that I found my son today. Today we have the profile of Dark Irregulars with my other son, John, Lil John, Canadian John, with his Dark Irregulars profile. His is a bit different from the other one. If you guys saw the other deck profile, I'm going to put it in the description box down below. His is very different. He's going to break down his build for us and explain everything else. But before I start the video, Lil John took all of this from Paul Santos, the owner of Final Turn Gaming. Just putting it out there. Anyways, take it away, Lil John.
I mean, I would have said that, but I guess it was taken from me. That's fine. So yes, this is DI's. Unlike we start with Number of Terror. I mean, that's just out of the way because it's the normal starter, and it looks better. But yeah, this build is really different from the common build because the common build is all about getting 3 pairs of 3 copies in Soul so that they guard restrict you and they attack you a bunch of times, and then you just die off of the fact that they cheesed you in a way that you can't guard. This is more of a grindy version. You just can do a lot better against Excel than that version can because it's way more defensive. And it's overall, in my opinion, I just think it's better because if it sees most of its pieces, it's better off winning. It's also, just in my opinion, more consistent. Since it's a Protect deck, Protect 1s and Protect 2s. Protect 1s against anything that retires. Against anything that retires or binds. Protect 2s overall are better if you don't face anything that binds because in this deck, things already gain shield, and if you have a big rear guard that can intercept and gain shield, overall that will probably just no pass and attack on its own. Out of the way of the common stuff, there's 8 crit. Don't mind that one is off-branded. I like Dark Knight, but I had to include everybody. 8 crit. It's kind of normal. If the 8 crit doesn't throw it away or give anything up, that obviously means we're playing 4 draws and 4 heals. Most people will maybe make an argument to say that Dark Irregular shouldn't run that many draws and that many heals. That many draws because they end up picking out. But this build is very, very different, and it can afford to run draw triggers. It actually prefers to have the draw triggers because it needs to see pieces, and it doesn't soul charge randomly. So the soul charges that you do are precise, and you don't do it as often, so you can afford to be running draw triggers. The latest add-in to the deck was for Rufus. This card looks so good as SVR. His effect is Counterblast 1. You look at your entire deck, you pick up to 3 cards. As long as 1 card is in your soul of the name of those cards, those 3 cards have to all have the same name. As long as there's 1 copy of one of those cards in your soul, you add one of them to your hand, and you soul charge the other 2. So this is good for multiple reasons. It lets you keep grabbing grade 3s as long as 1 Rufus goes into the soul. It also lets you search for just key grade 2s. It lets you fill your soul with certain grade 2s that you want mass copies of on your deck. Or it could just add a rear guard that you need in terms of boosting or attacking with. Overall, it's really good. Its other effect is also pretty decent if you get it off on the first time you ride it. If you have 2 grade 3s in your soul and this thing attacks, it retires a rear guard, it gets the power of that unit and the crit of that unit. If it retires a unit on a Force 2 marker, it gains that crit. If it retires a unit on the Force 1 marker, it does not gain its power. People must read their markers, I guess. Overall, though, it's very good for grinding, and specifically against Excel matchups. It just helps you in terms of getting rid of their rear guards and keep adding your own rear guards to your hand. The most prevalent Excel matchups retire your board, so you just need constant refuel of rear guards in your hand. But there's one grade 2 that helps in that aspect, but we'll get to it after. It's just helpful to have a card of consistency in DI, because I don't think DI's ever had consistency ever. For Dantarion, this is where it kind of differs because I don't play any of the other grade 3s that like No Life King or Hope on Dumb. Any of those cards that amass a huge end of turn thing. I use this VR because it's a push card and it's a defensive card. This card essentially says when you soul charge, it has 3 effects. When you soul charge a grade 2, you get to give 3 rear guards 5k. If it said units, it would be a lot better, but 3 rear guards 5k. And that's when any way grade 2 goes into the soul. So if grade 2s go into the soul through their own effects, that happens. If they go into the drop, that happens. So overall, it's just a nice spread of power to your board because there's some turns where you can constantly you can soul charge a mass amount of units. Then its other effect is when a unit is retired, you soul charge 2. You don't use it that often because it can randomly soul charge your triggers, and sometimes you're already set to the point where you don't need to use that skill. But if you're in a situation endgame where you just need a fish for one more grade 2 to give your lanes more power, it may be beneficial, or just to reach soul counts like 10 or 7, but usually that's not needed. And then its other important ability is the fact that you can use the grade 2s and grade 3s in your soul to guard with as if they're in your hand. This is not, and this is considered placing. This gets around mainly every guard restrict that deals with cards that can't be guarded from the hand. It deals with waterfalls. It deals with this deck's version of the 3 cards can only be guarded with. It deals with Novas, Musashi clones. People still run Musashis and Murakumo. But overall, it just gives you an extension of your hand that lets you guard from your soul so that you can outlive against Excel decks, because oftentimes Protect loses to Excel because it doesn't have the hand to outlast. That's why Dantarion is good. But yeah, it's just, and it's also just helpful to switch between the two, because as you switch between the two, you can keep amassing Protect markers, keep amassing advantage. There's never a bad first ride in this deck, which is the other good part about it. People may question that part of Dantarion's skill on you can only guard with grade 3s. This is one of them that has an effect that's relevant towards that. Basically, when it's placed on Rearguard or Guardian, and you have 10 cards in your soul, it gets 10k shield. So it's a good, just shield block out of the soul if it's in there. And it's also a very good 22k swinging Rearguard. But its other important effect is important in the matchups that do retire, because on its attack, it soul charges a card and then draws you 2 cards. This is very good with Dantarion because if you soul charge a grade 2, you give 3 units 5k. Overall, drawing 2 is very good, and when you face Excel matchups that retire your board, you want a card like this that can suck up away attackers and then draw you cards, because those cards are going to get retired anyways. Overall, this is the only card I'm really conflicted on because that 10 soul count can sometimes be an issue. But overall, I think it's needed because the card draw is very good, and the 1 grade 3 that says it guards for 10 from the soul is very good. I wouldn't really change it. I'm just a little conflicted on it's sometimes hard to use, but it's still good. Regardless, we're not gonna down talk this card. Gwyn's Emblem Master is the best card that DI ever got. Its effect is, as long as you have 7 in soul, it gets 5k power and 5k shield. So if you guard with these from your soul, they're 10ks. If you have these as lanes of attackers, they're 14s on your turn and your opponent's. And on a Protect 2 marker, that means it's 19 on your opponent's turn, so it can't be hit, and it's a 15k, it's a 20k guard. And then its other effect, which is more important, is on place Vanguard or Rearguard, counterblast 1 and target a unit. You soul charge up to 3 copies of that units from drop in the deck. So this makes Dantarion better, because if you soul charge a ton of these, you can not only guard with them, but you assign 15 to your board. If you soul charge on this turn, you get to activate the 2 grade 3 condition to retire a unit and get 10k, get the crit and power. But overall, it just helps deck thin out 3 non-triggers from your deck. And it being a good swinger is also a very good thing. Overall, just helping consistency as power is what makes this card good. So therefore, that's what is good. Then we move on to the card that gets paired with Dantarion. Is Force Dark Soul Conductor. It is, so essentially its effect is if you have a total of 10 cards in your soul and in your damage. So per se, if your damage has 5 and your soul has 5, 6 if you guard with it from your soul. It will activate its effect, which is it gets 10k shield, and then it goes back to the bottom of your deck. This helps you not deck out. This helps is just being a huge shield against those guard restrict mechanics. And also, the one key thing about it is that it does not work when it intercepts, because this specifically says when placed on Guardian Circle, Dantarion does place on Guardian Circle, but intercepting does not. So the points in time where you call this thing and then you use Dark Soul Conductor to soul charge 3 of them, It will give you 3 in the soul to use for Dantarion, but the one that you use on the rearguard, it will just be a 5k shield. So I was conflicted about this card in the beginning, but as I play the deck more and more, I start to like it more and more. It's Flirtatious Succubus. Her biggest problem, which is why I understand people hate her, is that she's an AK grade 2. But the other parts of her effect make her too good to not include in the deck because of the type of format that we're in with the Excel clans. At the end of her battle, she soul charges herself and then retires a unit on your opponent's board. This feeds into both parts of Dantarion because if she soul charges herself, that means a grade 2 goes into the soul, and since a unit gets retired, you soul charge 2. The important part about it just leaving the board is the fact that when you leave the board, the Excel clans that retire your own board, like Naru and Tachi's, you get rid of the stuff that's on their board, and then when they go and try to get rid of the stuff that's on your board, you don't have a board. So what you just essentially just did is attack them with a lot of cards, and then your board went away, and they lose some cards. You don't get suffered by the repercussions of calling cards from your hand, and you get to keep constantly using this card because the other effect of the card is counterblast 1 and discard a card, and you add her from soul to hand. So if it's a matchup where you, per se, because this does happen with Protect clans, you start drive checking too many draw PGs, and then these Protect markers seem like overabundant. You discard them for her. You call her from hand. You grab her from soul. You call her from hand to board, and then you just start. You get free access to your rearguard, which is the most important thing. If it was a 9k, I honestly think it would be too good. But Dantarion giving 5k to everybody makes her a halfway decent attack. At least one 5k makes it swing for 13 at literally any Vanguard, as long as it's not a 15k. But nobody plays those because they are bad. And then we play for Killer Tail. This is a very, very good card. Its effect is on rearguard, you rest her. You grab a card from your drop or your damage and you soul charge it. If that card came from your damage, you put top card of deck face down in the damage. And then if there's 3 copies of her in the soul, you get to give if there's 3 copies of her in the soul, you restand her, and then you get to countercharge 1, which essentially just makes it so that if you soul charge a card from your damage, you countercharge 1. You countercharge that card from damage, or if you grab it from drop, you just straight up start getting counterblast back. More parts than not, that effect is not relevant because Killer Tail's a lot better in this deck when you have two of them on the board and Terian, because literally whatever these rear guards are, if you start grabbing grade 2s that you use to guard with from your drop zone, like Emblem Master, because these obviously will go to drop after you guard with them from the soul, then 3 units will get 10k. 3 units will get 5k twice because 2 grade 2s went in the soul. So it just helps if you have 2 of these in your hand to keep amassing power between 3 cards to make this lane big and make these lanes big. Besides that, it's just obviously for consistency. It helps it so that you soul charge the grade 2s that you use to guard with from the drop, so you don't have to keep doing that from your deck. They never leave you. They always have to help you guard. Then the other new card is for Yellow Bolt. Initially this was not in the deck because that random soul charge was being a bit annoying, but to have another good card to ride first, because its other effect is when you ride on top of it, you soul charge 2. If you soul charge a trigger, you get to draw a card. Honestly, whichever part that you hit, even if you soul charge 2 normal units, you're still fine because you deck thinned 2 non-triggers, and that makes it so that if you go into Rufus first, you get more targets to activate his effect. You might possibly hit a grade 3, so you might be able to have his effect online to get the crit early. And also, this is just in general a good rearguard because it gets 5k when it attacks a grade 2 or greater, and you soul charge 1. So it makes it so that you don't have to commit that much hand to the board in order to attack your opponent, because a free 13k attacker is always a good thing. Speaking of which, free 13k attacker. Its other effect is really not relevant. It's really good, the fact that it's a free 13k attacker. It gains 5k if you have a grade 3 in your soul, and its other effect is you could counterblast 1 and put it on bottom and you soul charge 3, but knowing my luck, because this has happened literally every time, it's always 2 triggers and something else, or 3 triggers. So I will only really have this for a 13k booster or attacker continuously, so that even on the opponent's turn, they can't swing at this with a 9k. Again, the whole point of this deck, since it seems a little weird to people, is to wall up, to have good columns, and just to beat at your opponent's face. It's very unconventional from what most DI decks are like, but to be honest with you, I'm pretty sure it's more effective just because in general it's a lot more consistent than the other DI decks out there. It just has a better matchup spread. That's honestly it though. I don't know what else to say.
Alright, so what would you say, how is your matchup against another Protect clan? Say for instance, another DI deck.
So against DIs, well, I feel like this deck's 100% this deck's best matchup is any Protect clan, because all the Protect clans that are quote-unquote good in this game have cheesy ways to kill you, or they just gain a massive amount of advantage and they kill you through that. But I faced the normal DI version of this, the normal DI deck, and with Dantarion, you're just able to guard from your soul. So the turn where they use that card that says you can only guard with 3 cards from your hand, otherwise you can't guard, he gets around that to make sure that all their little tiny attacks get blocked with, you know, small amounts of guards from your soul. So that turn is wasted for them, and you kill them the next turn with this card because they put all the advantage into that turn and they didn't die. Or you look at a deck like Tsukiyomi, where they can spend literally all the time that they want drawing cards. I'm going to be swinging at rear guards and building my wall. They are not going to have counterblast, and they will 100% deck out before me because they draw cards, and I have a grade 2 that says when guard with, you put on the bottom of your deck. Yeah, I mean, in general, it's the same thing as before. The deck's hardest matchup technically is Excel decks, but at least this deck has a better fighting chance against Excel decks than any other Protect deck, in my opinion.
Okay. Alright, and just one more thing. I noticed that it looks like you mainly want to go with Protect 2. Is that correct?
I'd want to go against Protect 2. I said this in the beginning. I would want to go in, with Protect 2, but if it's a deck that retires or binds in Narukami's case, I have to go Protect 1 because my rear guards would be useless anyway, and these would be better against those types of decks. If it's a deck that gains an immense amount of power, like Shadows, something where I need a PG, I will also probably take it then. It depends on how many PGs I've seen out of the game by the time I ride a grade 3.
Alright. So we're basically looking at Narukami, Shadows, Kagero, and potentially Tachikazus.
In terms of bad matchups?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Alright, John. Definitely do appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did indeed enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. I think it looks better this way. Alright, thumbs up.
Wait, hold on. It's slanted like that. Yeah.
Remember to comment, like, subscribe. If you guys have any comments, leave a comment down below for John, and I'll make sure he will answer for you. And yeah. Alright, guys. Stay tuned for more videos, and we will see you guys next time.
We can build that.
He could do it. It's fine.
I always take things anyway, right?